Okay.
Hello and welcome to Local Lessons in Leadership, a video series brought to you by the Boys and Girls Clubs of Grand Rapids. I will be leading the video series, acting as moderator or host. In this video series, we'll be learning from some of our local leaders here in Grand Rapids, and we're looking to bring this to our Keystone members and all teenage members at the Boys and Girls Clubs of Grand Rapids at our Style, Seidman, and Paul I buildings. And the focus here is just to do what we can to stay in touch with our members as we go through this really public health crisis, and to let our members and families know that we'll be with you here throughout, and we'll be here for you when the crisis has passed. Week one, we'll be learning from Patrick Plaskowski. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
The CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Grand Rapids Youth Commonwealth. As I said before, my name's Alex. I run the Keystone program. I facilitate the staff facilitator for the Keystone program at the Seidman Center, and I'm also the program coordinator for the Seidman Center Boys and Girls Club. So, Patrick, if you could you describe what you do at the Boys and Girls Club as CEO, and tell us what the average day looks like for you?
Sure. So, yeah, as a CEO of a nonprofit, I wear a lot of different hats. As a nonprofit, we don't sell goods and services, but we are dependent very heavily upon the public good and donations from the public. So a fair amount of my time is overseeing and making sure that we are able to receive the monies and pursue the donations that we need to in order to help keep the lights on and keep everything running. So, of course, I oversee all the operations of the clubs, but one of my primary roles day to day is making sure that is fundraising, as we call it, and that is everything from talking to local individuals who have considerable or any means at all to help support what we do. It's also talking to a lot of foundations and government sources, but a lot of foundations that are here in town and regionally, and those foundations are set up, to specifically support charitable causes across the region. And so we spend a lot of time grant writing and making the argument, which is easy for us to do, honestly, because we have a great cause that these foundations, these private foundations, should support the work that we do. So I spend a lot of time doing that. I spend a lot of time talking to the general public as, I guess, an official spokesperson for the organization. We're a fairly public nonprofit, so I spend a lot of time talking to media and to just the general public in small groups and one-on-one to keep them up to date with what we're doing and why it's really important. I, of course, oversee every day. We have about 12 full-time staff and anywhere between 30 to 50 part-time staff that work for us every day. So there's a whole lot of work that goes on, just small stuff every day to make sure that everyone's getting paid and all the things are being processed that we need to in order to make sure everyone is employed and they get all the necessary benefits. And then, of course, I oversee all the finances as well. We have a little bit of help with this, but we have a lot of bills we pay every day, and a lot of financial planning and budgeting that we have to do every year. And then we have to look very carefully as the money flows in and the money flows out, like any other household or family budget. We have a budget where we have to make sure that we keep paying the utilities and keep doing all the purchasing that we're required to do to keep our operations and our doors open every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that with us. Since the video series is our target audience here is all of our Keystoners at the Boys and Girls Clubs of Grand Rapids. So we also want to talk to each person that we interview here about what they do for professional development for our members, but also we want to talk about leadership. Right. Yeah. And obviously the CEO of a nonprofit like the Boys and Girls Club clearly must know a lot about leadership. And so we want to learn from you. And we want to know, what you think the qualities of a good leader are.
Sure. There's a lot of different kinds of leaders. Um, but one of the first when I first stepped into my first leadership role in nonprofit, I ran a theater company. This is 20 some years ago, and the woman who I took it over from, one of the things that stuck with me that she said is, and she said she learned it from somebody else, a mentor of hers, was to always make sure that you hire people who are smarter than you, and then let them help you and listen to them. And so I think people think of leaders as being naturally just charismatic, rah people who are giving orders and directives. But I think actually some of the best leaders are people who are able to listen really well, and who do surround themselves with a lot of really smart people, and that have a certain humility. For sure, when you're a leader, you have to make some tough calls because the buck has to stop somewhere.
Right.
Somebody's got to make some decisions.
Right.
But I think the best leaders are the ones who are smart enough to listen to really smart people around them, because you can't always know the answer to everything. So I think a good leader is able to listen for real and solicit actual feedback and opinions from other people, and smart enough to know that they don't always have to be the one talking as I can continue to talk.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's okay. We're happy to learn from you here. And so I'm wondering, you talked a little bit about this, but in leadership development, can you think, and as you developed into a leader personally, can you think of someone in particular whose leadership qualities you really admired, and you tried to emulate?
Yeah, I had a few. I don't think there was ever any one single leader, but like anybody, there are a lot of people that I've seen lead over my life, and I try and pick bits and pieces and learn things along the way about their leadership style. And so I've had some very good leaders in my life who I've seen demonstrate, I guess, the kind of leadership that I'm talking about, the kind I would say is more of a coaching style of leadership, where it's not top down necessarily. It's not like a military command and control style. It's more about cultivating all the other leaders around you, because everyone can be a leader in their own way, even if they have nobody that's reporting directly to them at work. We all have these opportunities in our life and these spheres to be a leader. And even if it's just with your little brother or sister or your cousins. And so I've learned a lot from those people, and that's where you learn to lead. Is you make the calls when someone has to, but you also learn how to listen to others and hear what they're doing. You try and encourage them to own and lead their particular piece of whatever puzzle it is you're working on. Because then, if everyone, whoever's on that team, who's ever a member of that team, a member of that family, whatever, feels confident in their own strengths, and they feel like they have a role to play in everyone's success, then everyone's going to work better and harder. And at the end of the day, if you're a leader, if your team does really well, then you didn't have anything to do with it. You still get to take some credit for it because you're at the top of that team. So I think that having that kind of coaching style where you really try and encourage other people to be their best is just going to work out best for the whole team.
Okay.
And then conversely, as the leader, the other thing that you really have to do in that same scenario is you also have to be able to take the blame when something doesn't quite go right, even if maybe it's a mistake that happened, because somebody made a bad choice. You can't scapegoat that person, and it's got to be both ways. You can certainly take credit for a healthy team, but you also got to take the blame if maybe the team's not working as the best as it can.
So, my final question, you touched on this a little bit. You said, leaders become leaders by doing. You learn through doing. I was wondering if you could share any other strategies or techniques or ways that you've learned that our members, our Keystoners, could develop their own leadership skills.
Yeah, for sure by doing. So it is, I think, taking advantage of, being parts of teams, getting out there and volunteering and doing, whether it's playing sports, whether it's participating in a play or music or any kind of volunteer activities. It's, finding those opportunities where you have to work with team members and finding your your own particular strength. I think there are different kinds of leaders. Some leaders are really good at getting in front of people and talking, and that's a really important skill. Some leaders are really good at organizing and getting projects completed and being that one who can put all the steps in place and make sure things get done. So I think leadership can look lots of different ways, and the only way that you learn your own particular strengths is to get out there and try some things, and to realize that you're going to fail occasionally, and understanding that every one of those failures is an opportunity to learn. And that's real. That's really hard to learn, especially when you're, honestly, I remember being a teenager, and the last thing you want to do is project any kind of vulnerability or that you made a mistake. But the only way to grow and the only way to get better is to be able to acknowledge mistakes and then learn from them, because you're going to make them. Everyone does. And so I think not being afraid of putting yourself in situations where maybe you might fail is really the only way to learn. So in order to stretch yourself, you got to kind of extend yourself, and sometimes it might not work out, but know that you've learned something from that, and that's a strength, not a weakness.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have for you, Patrick. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us and our members here. We will look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Alex.
All right.